Dumbo. This is our Tuesday night edition where we break down some of the biggest games in week 10. We're also going to do a little bit of a review and give our team of the week, player of the week, coach of the week, and then we're going to finish with something fun where we're going to do a fantasy snake draft of playoff contender teams. We're going to do 5 rounds each, with the fifth round being a non-power five or power four conference team. So I'm going to get things started with team, player, and coach of the week on my end. My team of the week's the Houston Cougars. They went on the road. They were a 7.5 point dog at Arizona State, pulled off a 24-16 win. They were +1 in the turnover margin, and Connor Wegman had a pretty solid game, 17 of 22 passing, 201 yards, and then 21 carries for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. So right now, Houston's 7-1, sitting at 4-1 in conference play, and they finish out their season against WVU, UCF, TCU, and Baylor. So Houston Cougars, you're my team of the week. And then player of the week, since the SEC is not going to recognize these guys, I will. I've got co-player of the weeks, and it's Ryan Niblett from Texas and Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M. So Ryan Niblett has a 79-yard punt return in the game against Mississippi State with under 2 minutes to go, down by 1 touchdown, forces that game into overtime, and Texas gets the win on the road. So he finished up with 104 yards in the return game and a score. And then you go over to KC Concepcion. You know, Texas A&M takes the lead after half against LSU, so they're up 3 points. KC Concepcion's back to return a punt, also takes it 79 yards for a score, gives them a double-digit lead, finished with 132 yards and a score in the return game, and 3 catches for 45 yards and a touchdown. So the SEC may snub you guys, but Ryan Niblett and KC Concepcion, I'm not tonight. So Kevin, tell us who. Oh, wait, let me go to my coach of the week. I'm gonna stay with Texas A&M and go Mike Elko here. Texas A&M's 8-0 now. They got their first win in Death Valley since joining the SEC. They had 426 yards of total offense, and they held LSU to 276 yards in Death Valley, only 60 yards on the ground for the Tigers. So shout out Coach Elko this week. Now I'll move over to you, Kevin.
And your coach of the week might actually end up coach of the year here in about a month with what he's getting done. So good ones. So my team of the week, I'm going to go with the Ole Miss Rebels, going into Oklahoma and getting a win that they really was a must win for them, in my opinion, from a playoff standpoint. That being said, only a must win from the standpoint of they really have put themselves in a position to be in the playoffs. I think they're in a position to be in the playoffs. I think they're in a position to be a top 6 seed in the playoffs at this point, because I think they win out the rest of the season with a tough game on the road against Mississippi State at the end as a game that could be an opportunity. Coach of the week, I'm going to stay right there, and I'm going to go with Lane Kiffin. Simply because I think the last 2 years he's really grown and matured. Now, he lost some of these games last year. He did beat Georgia, so that would be one I give him credit for and show the progress. But then this year he's won these games and played well in all of these big type games. Whereas, for years the knock on Kiffin was in big games his teams wouldn't perform. So not just a big game on the road, 5.5 point underdogs. They win by 8 and probably could have won this game by 2 scores. Uh, Played really well offensively. Didn't have really any down periods in this game, which, again, Florida last year he had, LSU last year he had, Kentucky he had. You even go to their one loss this year with Georgia. They played very well, scored 35 points, scored on their first 7 possessions. So I think this is by far Lane's best coaching job. And so I want to go with him. And I don't care what Brent Venables said. Ole Miss was the better team. And Lane Kiffin is my coach of the week. The last one for player of the week, I want to go with Bear Bachmeier from BYU, and here's my reasoning on that. So BYU goes into Iowa State, not an easy place to play. Iowa State's beat Iowa earlier this year, and so tough place to play against a tough coach team and a team that can compete defensively. Got down 14 points, and Bachmeier had the composure to keep his team together, lead them back, and they won by 14, 41-27. Once they got it rolling, they put points on the board. He was 22 out of 35 for 307 yards passing, had 49 yards rushing, no turnovers, and he had 3 total TDs for BYU. So for a freshman, congrats to him. Really showed out on the road in a tough environment and led his team to a victory, and they stayed undefeated in the Big 12. So that's my group. Sweets, what about you?
As much as I hate to do this, my team of the week is the Texas A&M Aggies. They're undefeated on the year, ranked 3rd in the country, won in Death Valley for the first time in at least since they've been in the SEC. I know they've won there before, but it's been decades. So they just came in and blew doors, did what they had to do. So hats off to them. My player of the week, staying in succession with that, was Marcel Reed. For the second year in a row, he's destroyed LSU's defense. He had 202 yards through the air with 2 touchdowns. He had a couple of picks, but they didn't end up affecting the bottom line. Also rushed for 108 yards and had 2 touchdowns there as well. My coach of the week is Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. Another for the second week in a row facing a ranked team. Vanderbilt wins again, so they're a top 10 team now. They're solid, and if they run the table, they're obviously in the playoff, and they might even be able to lose a game to Tennessee in there, and win out and still get in. But that's my team coach and player of the week. So now we're going to go ahead and go to the non-SEC games of the week. You want to lead us off, D-Mac?
Yeah, so we've got Memphis traveling over to Rice. I know to some people this may not be a flashy game to talk about, but Kevin, get us started on this one.
Yeah, so it's a Friday night game. Memphis is a 13.5-point favorite. And but where it's a tough game is, so Memphis is coming off a very emotional win at home against South Florida that they had to win the fourth quarter by 17 points to get the win. And going on the road is what they're doing this Friday. So it's a trap type game with Rice. Now, look, if you look at the numbers, Memphis is the better team. Breaking it down, Brandon Lewis got 1,600 yards passing, 16 TDs, and Sutton Smith over 565 yards rushing. Memphis has the better offense and a little better defense. Rice is 113th on defense, so whereas Memphis is 65th on defense. So that to me gives Memphis the advantage in that. But again, Friday night game at home for Rice. You could see Memphis get off to a sluggish start after that big win last Saturday. So how they respond in this game, they got to get off to a fast start. Memphis is playing for a chance in the playoffs, so it's a big game for them. So again, they're going to be in the spotlight on Friday night. 13.5-point favorite. I do think Memphis wins this game. I would say though, I think there will be a little bit of a hangover. I think Memphis will win this game by 10. I'm going to go 34-24 over Rice. Sweets, what's your opinion on this one?
I'm with you. Listen, Memphis got everything in front of them still. They're playing for a playoff spot. They know they need to win, and they need style points too. So I think Memphis is going to come in looking to hammer Rice if they can, and I think they handle them. You said the spread was 13.5, I think Memphis wins this one 42-21, 24, something like that. They win, cover, look good doing it, and keep their playoff hopes alive. What are your thoughts, D-Mac?
Yeah, so I'm with you, Kevin. I think for at least the first quarter, Memphis may come out a little sluggish, but I do think they cover in this game. And one big stat to me for them is they're +7 in the turnover margin this year, which puts them in the top 13 in the nation. So I'm going to go a 45-24 win for Memphis in this one. So that brings us to our next game, which is going to be Navy and North Texas. So this game's being played in North Texas. Navy's undefeated right now, sitting at 7-0. North Texas is 7-1 with a loss at home to South Florida this year. And what really sticks out to me about this Navy team is how good their offense is running the football. Yeah, I know they do some crazy option stuff on offense, but they're averaging 320 yards a game on the ground, about 160 passing. So roughly 480 yards total per game, which puts them in the top 12 in the country. On defense, they're sitting at 373 yards a game, 76th in the nation. And then you look at this North Texas team on offense, they do it pretty much the complete opposite way. They're passing for about 315, running for 175, good for 493 yards a game, which puts them sixth in the country. On defense, they're giving up 361 yards a game. So I think this game's going to come down to, can North Tech or can Navy establish their run game and control the time of possession? If they do that, I like Navy to win this game. But North Texas has a ton of big play, explosive capability. And they're really good in my favorite stat, the turnover margin. North Texas is +8 this year, which puts them ninth in the country. So I think this game's 5.5 points. I'm gonna say this game does not cover for Navy, but I think Navy's gonna win a close game. I'm gonna go 28-24. Navy wins, and they're able to dominate the time of possession and run the ball efficiently enough to get a win. Who do you like in this one, Sweets?
I'm with you. I think Navy wins the game. I like Navy 35-31. It's a real contrast in styles with Navy's ball control offense. They like to run the clock, keep teams' defenses on the field for long periods of time. North Texas airs it out. I think Navy forces enough 3-and-outs where they control the clock for maybe 33, 34 minutes of the game, and where they wear North Texas down and they pull it out in the end. What are your thoughts there, Kevin?
This is a really interesting game. North Texas defense, their rushing defense is absolutely awful, and Navy's rushing offense is the best in the country. Kind of like what you were saying, D-Mac. On the flip side of it, Navy's pass defense is one of the worst in the country, and North Texas pass offense is one of the best in the country. It's a home game for North Texas. I like where Eric Morris. I think the matchups, are pretty split. I think you're going to have a high scoring game. I think the time of possession will probably go to Navy, but I think offensively, I really like Eric Morris as a coach, and I think they'll have a lot of drives. His quarterback last week threw for over 600, and he also has Caleb Hawkins as a freshman who's ran the ball well and caught the ball well. So I'm going to go North Texas here. They're actually the favorite in the game. And I think they're going to win. I don't know that they're going to cover, but give me North Texas by 4, 31-27.
Like,
So that brings us to, we're staying in Texas with this one. We've got the Miami Hurricanes traveling to SMU, game played in Dallas. This game's interesting to me. It opened up, Miami was a 10.5 point favorite. That has now jumped to 12.5 today as we're talking. So, Miami does a lot of things well. Their defense is playing at a really high level, only giving up 270 yards a game, which puts them 11th in the country. On offense, they're scoring 34 points a game, which puts them in the top 35 in the nation. And they're averaging about 409 yards a game. Then you flip over to the SMU side, and their offense is averaging about 388 yards a game, scoring 32 points a game. Here's where SMU struggles is on defense. They're giving up 400 yards a game, 303 in the pass game. Their run defense is pretty good, only giving up 96 yards a game, allowing opponents to score 21 points a game. I think this is a game where you've got to see Carson Beck step up. And their loss to Louisville a few weeks ago, he threw way too many interceptions. So this is a game they're going to need him to step up and really find Malachi Tony a lot throughout this game. When it does come to defense, though, SMU is third in the nation in red zone defense. So a lot of the touchdowns that SMU gives up are outside of the red zone. So when I break down the turnover margin, which is typically my deciding factor on teams, is Miami's 22nd at +5, SMU's 13th at +7, so pretty close there. I don't think Miami covers this game. 12 and a half points is a lot, but I think Carson Beck gets things straight again for this Miami offense. And I think they win a bit of a shootout game. So you're going to see that Miami defense give up a few more points than they usually would. But I'm going to go Miami 38, SMU 31 in this one. Who do you like in this one, Kevin?
Yeah, I think this is another real interesting game. It's one that I've been waiting for a couple of weeks. I thought 2 weeks ago that SMU might be the team that upsets Miami, and that's before Louisville went in there to Miami and beat them. Here's the difference in the game, in my opinion. Now I know Carson Beck had the a lot of interceptions in that game against Louisville, and but if you take that game out, Miami's protected the ball pretty well. SMU consistently has turned the ball over week after week this year. So and with penalties, and that was what cost them in that TCU game. If you remember when we all predicted that game. So again, that turnover margin is important. Like you mentioned, DMAC, it's one of the best statistics in football. So give me Miami in a close, hard-fought game, 27-24. They win that game. Sweets, what's your thoughts?
I like Miami big here. I'm gonna go 38-17. I just don't see SMU's offense doing a lot against that Miami defense. I think the Jimmies and Joes are going to be too much for SMU. That defense, Miami's defense versus their offense. I think again, Cristobal knows that he's got to score and get some style points after that Louisville loss. I think Beck gets it rolling again, and that defense is hell. I like Miami big here this weekend, guys. Next, we go to Virginia at Cal, and I'll lead off with that one. Virginia's 7-1, ranked 15th in the country. They're heading to Berkeley to face the 5-3 Cal Bears. I like Virginia. I missed the line here. I think it's 3.5 here. Virginia's favored. I like Virginia to win this game 27-21. I think they go out there and cover. It's always tough to travel from east to west, but I think Virginia's just a better team. They're scoring well. They're 37.1 points a game, 437 yards a game on offense. Pretty balanced. 252 yards passing and 186 rushing. So they're doing it. They're doing it to them both ways here. Chandler Morris has a little bit of a shoulder injury, but I think he's going to be okay and ready to play. Jamari Taylor has 581 yards on the ground this season, along with 9 touchdowns. For California, Jerron, I'm going to screw this up. Kaui Sagapolu-Tele has not thrown an interception in his past 2 games. So he's getting things going here for Cal. But at the end of the day, I think Virginia's on a mission. They're still alive in the playoff hunt. So that was my prediction. What do you think about that game, DMAC?
Yeah, Virginia should have lost to North Carolina last week. If they get the ball three more inches towards the goal line, Carolina wins that. So I think that was a little bit of we're sleeping, we're walking through this game last week. I don't think that Virginia lets that happen again. Chandler Morris is playing really good football right now. Virginia is also really good at the turnover margin, +6, puts them 18th in the nation. So I'm rolling with Virginia to get a win on the road. Give me Virginia. I'm going to go 34-24. Virginia wins this one. Who do you like, Kevin?
Yeah, I like Virginia in this game. I think they struggled last week, but again, they've got a lot playing for them. I think they played down to their competition last week. So, I think they'll bounce back. They've been good all year. And again, Chandler Morris is experienced. I don't know. I think he's maybe in his 10th year. I mean, just kidding. I know you mentioned 6th, and that's what it is. But he's played a long time. And so let me go with that experience. Give me Virginia 27-17.
That brings us to the Georgia Tech NC State game. Get us started on that one, Kevin.
Yeah, so this is a good game. So both teams have really good offenses. Georgia Tech has the 16th ranked offense in the country with Buster Faulkner leading them, and very balanced. Haynes King leads them in passing and rushing. He 1,460 yards passing and 650 rushing the football. NC State is also good offensively. So their quarterback Bailey has over 2,000 yards passing, and Smothers has 800 yards rushing, and so they've been good offensively. I think again the difference is Georgia Tech's defense on the year has just been a little better than NC State's, and so again this is a game because it's on the road. Georgia Tech's a 5.5-point favorite. This is a game they've got to win to keep their momentum going. And so give me Tech, their defense. Oh, here no, let me share this one. Here's your stat that's the difference in the game. I mentioned State's defense has struggled this year. Mississippi or not Mississippi. NC State's defense is 113th on third down conversions, giving up 44%. And Georgia Tech is getting 50% of their third down conversions. And I think that's where they're 16th in the country, or in the top group in the country anyway, on third down. So Tech's going to keep their drives alive on third down, and NC State's going to help them with that poor defense. So give me Tech in this game, 31-20, as their offense controls the clock, time of possession with how they play on offense and that physical style. Sweets, what's your thoughts?
I like Georgia Tech. I think they handled NC State well today. I don't think that they're going to have any answers for Haynes King and Georgia Tech's rushing attack. I like Tech 38-24. I just think that they're going to overpower them. Tech's on a mission. Brent Key's got those guys playing great ball. They play disciplined football. They're sound. They're tough. I really like Key as a coach, and I think Haynes King is really came into his own as a quarterback. Give me Tech big here by 14. What are your thoughts, D-Mac?
Yeah, I love this Georgia Tech team, the way they play tough physical football. Brent Key has them firing on all cylinders. They're even passing the ball well with Haynes King. He's obviously much more of a runner, but averaging 36 points a game. Their defense is playing really good. The only bright spot for NC State where they could maybe cause some ruckus here at home is they are plus, no, actually, sorry, I read that wrong. They are terrible in the turnover margin. They're -5, ranked 114th in the nation. So take back what I just said. Thought I was about to say +5. So I'm going to roll with Georgia Tech, similar to you, Sweets. I'm going to go 41-20 in this one. Georgia Tech gets the win. Big win for them, and they keep moving towards a playoff spot. So that brings us to Arizona State and Iowa State. What do you have on this one, Kevin?
So matchup of two quarterbacks if they're healthy with Rocco Beck and Sam Levitt. The only scenario there is Sam Levitt has been ruled out of this game. So, that's really swings this game to Iowa State for me. They're playing at Iowa State. Both teams, statistically, yardage wise, have good offenses. But the interesting thing, and this is with Sam Levitt playing, even though Arizona State offense averages over 400 yards a game and they're in the top 50 in the country, they only average 24 points a game on offense. And that goes, again, they are 118th on third downs on offense, 34%. And so that's where they've struggled getting their points. They're able to move the ball, similar to LSU. They move the ball between the 30s, but they can't stick it in the end zone a lot of times. And again, without Levitt going on the road, I think this is going to be a tough game for Arizona State. I think they're going to fall to 5-4. They've got a good team, and they're one of those teams that, if they're firing on all cylinders, can beat just about anybody like they did with Texas Tech. But without Levitt, to me, he's the heart of their team. I think Iowa State's going to roll in this game. They're a 7.5-point favorite at home, and I really think they probably win the game by about 14. So give me Iowa State and their offense with Rocco Beck, 34-20 for Arizona State. And man, they may have a hard time getting 20 without Levitt.
Yeah, I like Iowa State here too, Kev. I think that backup quarterback for ASU, Jeff Sims, struggled mightily against Utah. Iowa State, this is a revenge game. Remember, this was the Big 12 championship game last year. Arizona State won it, so Iowa State at home is looking for revenge here, and I think they get it with Levitt being out. If Levitt was in the game, I think it would be a lot different. But go ahead and mark me down for Iowa State. I'm going to say Iowa State 31-21 against the Sun Devils. What are your thoughts, D-Mac?
Yeah, I'm with both of you guys, and that kind of seems to be a trend tonight. We're picking the same teams a lot tonight.
Boy, I'll tell you what, bettors, there's your opportunity to make a lot of money. Pick against us.
I know. I think the only game we've differed any is that Navy North Texas game. I think every other game we picked the same teams, but I also think that plays into this late in the season. In these power conferences, you really see who the contenders are. I'm with you guys. If Sam Levitt's playing for Arizona State, this is probably a different game. I'm going to go 31-21, actually same as you, Sweets, as far as the score goes in this one. So that brings us to Texas Tech and Kansas State. So I'll get things started on this one. It's currently sitting at a 7.5-point line. They're playing in Manhattan, Kansas, so home game for Kansas State. And I know when I talk Big 12 football, Kansas State's still a team I have who could be a spoiler for somebody. Unfortunately, I don't think it's happening this week. This Texas Tech team, especially on offense, is just too good, averaging right at 500 yards a game, 300 in passing, 200 on the ground, 44 points a game on offense. And you look at the Kansas State defense, they're giving up 370 yards a game, giving up about 150 on the ground, 220 in the air. One thing Texas Tech is really good at offensively is penalties. They don't commit a ton. They're in the top 35 with about 40 yards in penalties a week. So I really like this Texas Tech team. They faced some adversity with their loss at Arizona State, losing that one on the road, but they had some quarterback issues, guy go down. I think in this game, Cameron Dickey, a few weeks ago, he was my player of the week with a huge performance on the ground. I think he's poised for another one. I'm going to take Texas Tech in this one, 45-24. Huge win for the Red Raiders on the road. Who do you have in this one, Kevin?
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of the best games of the weekend. Kansas State's playing a lot better football. They beat Baylor a couple weeks ago, and they've beaten TCU recently. They actually lost that Baylor game on the road by 1 point. but they led a lot of that game. And then they came home and beat TCU. And then this past weekend, they throttled Kansas. I think this is a tight game that goes into the fourth quarter. The game's being played at K-State, and they're playing, like I said, they're playing a lot better football. I think Tech wins the game, but I see this game 28-27, and Tech has to win this game late. And don't be surprised if Kansas State pulls this game off. But from the spread, this would be one of my dogs that I like. Give me K-State from an underdog standpoint on the spread, but Tech to narrowly win this game.
I like Texas Tech, guys. I think Texas Tech wins somewhere 38-31, something around there. So if the spread 7.5, it's going to be a push. Maybe a K-State sneaks them out by a hook. Baron Morton's coming back in to play quarterback after Will Hammond tore his ACL, the backup quarterback. So they're looking forward to getting him back and getting it going on offense. The one thing that scares me, Kansas State is sixth in the country in turnover margin at +9. Two of those, and that swings things mightily. But Texas Tech is still, I think, the best team in the Big 12, and I think that they're going to go ahead and handle their business at K-State. That'll take us to the next game, which is Cincinnati at the University of Utah. Where's my line on this game? D-Mac, what's the line on this game? I'm not.
I think it's up to 8.5. Utah's an 8.5 point favorite at home.
Awesome. Yeah, playing in Salt Lake is always tough. That altitude gets teams from a little flatter areas. I've been out there the past 2 weeks. I'm just getting my breathing back, coming back to Marietta. But I think that Utah's going to handle their business here. I think that they're fired up after the BYU loss that they thought that they should have won that game. Utah's they're 6-2, 4-2 in the Big 12, and I think that they coming off a big win against Colorado. I think they handle business here. Give me the running Utes 41, Cincinnati 24. What are your thoughts on this one, Kev?
Man, this is another really good game this week. You know, the Big 12, even though they may not have a dominant team, if you look week to week, they have a lot of really good games. And so Cincinnati is undefeated in the conference. Utah's got 2 losses. We've said after the BYU loss that Utah would be a spoiler in this league. Cincinnati is a team that all year teams have people and teams and TV people, media. Nobody's got behind Cincinnati and picked them, but they keep winning, and their defense is good, and they keep winning. So this is a game you got. Both teams have pretty good defenses. I like Utah to win this game, but much like that Kansas State, the Kansas State Texas Tech game, much like in that game, I think this game will go down to the wire. I really see Utah winning this game by a field goal or less. So I'm going to say 27-24. But this is a fourth quarter game that comes down to the last 5 to 7 minutes. A turnover could make the difference in this game. So good game to watch for all of the fans that are out there. D-Mac, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Utah's a really good team when they're playing at home. Cincinnati, though, has answered everything that's been thrown their way this year. Brennan Sorsby, 19 touchdowns to only 1 interception, almost 1,900 yards in the passing game. I think this is going to be a really good one, but I'm rolling with the Bearcats in this one. I think they're going to win this game. I'm going to go 31-24. Cincinnati gets a win and keeps their chances of the Big 12 championship alive for at least a couple more weeks here. So that brings us to the.
I like that Brennan Sorsby mentioned. He's an outside candidate for Player of the Year in that league if they keep winning. And like you referenced, the 19 TDs. For teams that are looking for a portal quarterback, Brennan Sorsby is one to consider. I think we'll hear his name at the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree. So that brings us to the Ohio State-Penn State game. Before we jump into this one, though, I want to answer a couple questions. First one is, who do you think Ohio State's first loss will be this year? Anybody want to give me a drum roll for the Penn State game? No, I'm just kidding. Not throwing that one out just yet. I think Ohio State runs the table, regular season and in the conference championship. I think they enter the playoffs 13-0. Sweets, you got any thoughts on that?
I'm with you. I think Ohio State's going to run the table. I don't think they're going to win the national championship. I see them, depending on how the matchups break down, I see them getting to the semis, perhaps even the final. But I see them coming up a little short this year. What are your thoughts on it, Kev?
Yeah, so that question kind of coincides with another question in the chat where Bob asked, do we think any team would be undefeated and win the national championship this year or any year, the era of undefeated teams? So I think Ohio State is that team this year. I think they're going to go undefeated the regular season, and I think they'll go win the playoffs and go and be undefeated. And here's the reason why. They have strengths at all the positions, and if you break down offense, defense, special teams, all those things, they're good. One of the best defenses in the country since Julian Sayin is middle of the year has started, really coming on. And, he's a young quarterback. He's playing outstanding, getting Heisman mentioned. To me, they just don't have any weaknesses. And I will say this: the team that has the best chance of beating Ohio State, in my opinion, is right there in the same conference in the Big Ten, because I think the only type of team that can beat Ohio State is a physical team that can run the ball, and that's Indiana. Because you've got to shorten the game against them to make the game a close, competitive game that's played in the 20s. I think Indiana has the best chance to do that. That being said, I think Ohio State wins it this year. I think they're clearly the best team as this season has evolved. Look, there's a lot of really good SEC teams. I just don't think any of them – all your SEC teams have a spot of a weakness. I don't see that with Ohio State.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ohio State's phenomenal. So diving into this Penn State Ohio State game, I believe the line is up to 20.5 right now. This has got to be the largest spread in a Penn State Ohio State game in a really long time, if not ever. Ohio State's defense is really good. First in the country, giving up 216 yards. First in the country, giving up less than 6 points. Third in the country in pass defense, giving up 131 yards a game. And eighth in the country in giving up 85 rush yards a game. Penn State's offense, especially with Drew Aller being out for the season, they're gonna, I think, have to lean heavy on Katron Allen, the running back who's got, averaging over 6 yards a carry with 9 touchdowns. He would be, in my opinion, the biggest bright spot for Penn State in this game. But with how good that Ohio State defense is, I just don't see him having a ton of success. And with how well Ohio State's offense is playing right now, averaging 36 points a game, 431 yards a game. They're really catching stride at the right time. Julian Sayin's been really good, 1,900 yards, 19 touchdowns, to 3 interceptions. But here's the stat that I love about him: 80% completion percentage. It's been a long time since we've seen a quarterback execute at the level that he's executing. It does help when you've got Jeremiah Smith to throw the ball to, because he's going to catch 4.5 out of every 5 passes thrown to him. Ohio State is also, we talked about their defense. Their red zone defense is really good. Teams are scoring less than 50% of the time against them in the red zone. And Ohio State's really dominating the time of possession, averaging, almost 33 minutes a game. So I love Ohio State in this one. I would normally not pick them to cover a game like this, but I'm going to go big win for the Buckeyes. I'm going to go 49-10. Ohio State wins this in a blowout, and really just another gut punch to Penn State here. Sweet, who do you like in this one?
I'm with you. Listen, Jim Knowles has got that defense hitting on all cylinders for Ohio State. Saying is, I mean, just incredible. Like you said, that that type of efficiency is something that I don't even remember the last quarterback who even approached those numbers as far as that goes. Um, Ohio State wins this one 38. I'll give Penn State a mercy field goal in the fourth quarter, 38-3 Buckeyes, and they just keep rolling. The only thing that's going to stop them is, like Kevin said, a team that can handle them physically. I don't know that Indiana is that team, but I think they can. Perhaps in the playoff they run into somebody who can. But boy, they look really good right now. What are your thoughts, Kev?
Yeah, I think this is not the Penn State that can beat this Ohio State team. Uh, Penn State will play with pride. Their defense will play, tough to try to keep this game competitive. I just think this will be one of those games that Ohio State just kind of just layers it every quarter. I think it's going to be about a 34-10 game, simply because Ohio State. Bob wants to take Penn State there, simply because Ohio State. That's kind of what they've done lately. They'll get up and then they will kind of bring in their backups and let the game play out. So I don't think Ohio State will try to throw 40, 50 points on the board in this game. I think they'll keep their players healthy and that. Now, that being said, going back to Bob's other question about undefeated teams, the one danger for me with Penn State is the fact that they've not had a lot of competitive games. Texas was at the beginning of the season. Will they be battle tested enough once you get in the playoffs? To your point earlier, Sweets, about them not winning the game. I think that's the biggest thing they have to guard against it. Again, unless a team can, like I say, shorten the game and get it into a number of possessions type game. So who do we have next?
Yeah, that brings
I think
us
that
to Indy.
Go ahead.
you're right. Maryland and Indiana. I apologize, D-Mac. Your point, man. My
No,
bad.
you're good.
Indiana, number 2 in the country. Signetti's got these guys hitting on all cylinders. Quarterback for Fernando Mendoza has just under 2,000 yards passing, 24 touchdowns through the air. Running back Roman Hemby has 513 yards on the ground with 4 rushing TDs. And Lewis Moore leads the defense with 53 tackles. They're playing as good as anybody right now, and I even throw Ohio State in there with that. That'll be a great game to watch if those two end up matching up. I like them big against Maryland. They're just too much. I think Signetti, like I said, he's rolling. He's got his money now, but I think he's hungry and he wants to prove to everybody that that he can still get it done. So go ahead and put me down for Indiana 38. I'll give Maryland 13. What are your thoughts on this one, D-Mac?
Yeah, this Indiana team is just too good for the competition they're playing right now. I still don't think Indiana's in even your semifinals. I'm gonna make that bold prediction. I think they go 12-1 with that loss against Ohio State, and I think they're bounced in the first round of the playoffs. But this is not going to be the game that they lose. Mendoza's just playing at too high of a level. Hemby is running the ball really well, averaging about 5 yards a carry. So I'm with you. I'm gonna go 41-13, big win for Indiana on the road. Who do you like in this one, Kevin?
So I like Indiana, and I'm not going to say that a game is going to be competitive with Indiana for a while. Okay, I picked Illinois to beat them at the first of the year, and then I thought UCLA. Not that they could make that game competitive last week, but I thought they'd play them within 25, and Indiana just blew the doors off of them. I was the only team to play them in a competitive game, and that was the week after they pounded Illinois at Iowa, and Iowa's got a good defense. Look, I think this team is very physical on the offensive line. They run the ball for over 300 yards a game. I think Indiana's going to throttle them, and I don't think they'll pull back. I think Indiana wins this. They're on a mission. I think they win this game 45-10, and I think Indiana will be a top 6 seed. They'll host a game, and I think they'll win that first round game. That's where I'm going with them. This isn't the same Indiana team as last year that won and got into the playoffs because they played a poor schedule. This is a more dominant Indiana team. Better quarterback too, like you mentioned with Mendoza.
Yeah, so that brings us to our last non-SEC game, and that's Notre Dame traveling to Boston College. Sweets, tell us about that one.
So Notre Dame is sitting at 5-2 now, and firmly back in the playoff hunt after beginning of the season 0-2. They're running the ball well. Jeremiah Love has rushed for 758 yards and 9 touchdowns on the season. He's also caught 3 out of the backfield. The one concern I have this week for Notre Dame is that they're missing 2 offensive linemen, which has certainly hurt that running game. But they're playing Boston College, okay, and Boston College has been awful this year. They're 1-7. They're giving up. They're giving up how many yards did it say? Lord, they're giving up 33 a game, 410 on defense, which puts them squarely at 111th in the country. And I think that Notre Dame is just too much for them. They started off with a week 1 win. They've lost 7 straight. It doesn't get any better playing Notre Dame this week. Give me the Fighting Irish 41, Boston College 10. And we're going to see if the Marcus Freeman to LSU rumors heat up in the next few weeks. What are your thoughts on this one, Kev?
Yeah, I've said it. I love Notre Dame. I love C.J. Carr. Notre Dame's going to roll in this game. I don't need to get into a lot of stuff because we can save that for other games. Notre Dame's going to win this game 45-10. They're going to keep rolling. I still like Notre Dame to get in the playoffs and win out. What you think, D-Mac?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. Notre Dame's playing really good football after starting 0-2 this year. CJ Carr looks good. Jeremiah Love is looking like maybe the best running back in the country, and it may not even be close in that category. Give me Notre Dame. I'm gonna go 45. I'm going to give Boston College a late field goal in this one. Huge win for Indy on the road, 45-3. So that brings us to our SEC games. And the first one on tap is Vandy and Texas. This game is played in Austin. Right now, Texas is a 2.5-point favorite. And I personally, I've been down on Texas a lot this year. I feel like they underachieved. But one thing they've done the last few weeks is they found a way to win games. Their offense, nothing special, 375 yards a game, which puts them at 79th. They're passing for 236 and running for 139, scoring 29 points a game. Their defense, though, is pretty solid, giving up 300 yards a game, which puts them in the top 20. And their rush defense and scoring defense is good, giving up 80 yards a game, which puts them 3rd in the nation, and 14.5 points a game given up puts them 10th in the nation. You flip over to the Vanderbilt offense. Everything starts with Diego Pavia here at Vanderbilt. Thrown for 1,700 yards, 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 69% completion percentage, and he's added about another 460 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. Vandy's coming off a big win at home against Missouri. So I'm going to make the prediction that Texas wins this game at home. As good as I think Vandy is, what I've seen from Texas the last few weeks is, whether it's a special teams play, defensive play late in the game, they find a way to win. I'm going to go 24-21 Texas in this one. Who do you have in this one, Sweets?
Give me the Fighting Diego Pavias. They pull it out late. They're going to win 27-24. And you brought something up earlier that caught my attention. You said Texas find ways to win. That's been Vandy the past 2 years. They have just found ways to win. Diego Pavia finds a way to win at the end. They're in Texas. Their offensive success rate is 110th in their country. Their offensive line performance is 116th in the country, and I think that it ends up being their undoing this week. I think that they're just not able to score quite enough to beat Vandy. So, like I said, 27-24, the Commodores keep rolling. What are your thoughts, Kev?
Yeah, so the positives for Texas in this game. So Texas is 20th in third down conversions with their defense, allowing 31% of third downs. And again, that is where Vanderbilt really attacks you with their offense. They love to take 8-10 play drives down the field. So that is a key stat for Texas. Second thing for Texas that's a key stat is their turnover margin at +7. So I think that's their key things for them. Sweet, you mentioned the one that I really like for Vandy, though. Texas offense has struggled. Their offensive line has struggled. Arch Manning is, the Oklahoma game is the only full game that he really played that was pretty complete. And Vandy's defense, nobody talks about their defense, but their defense is 31st in play and 18th against the rush. If they're 18th against the rush, that means they've got to depend on Arch to really throw the ball for their offense to move it. Now, Vandy's secondary is questionable, so he can be effective. That being said, he's not really shown for a full game that he can get it down the field all game. And I go back over to Vandy's offense. The thing that I really like about their offense, Pavia is good, and he's the key to that team. He starts the engine and he runs it. But the people don't talk enough about their offensive line. You watch Vandy's offensive line is going to be a finalist in the Joe Moore Award. And so Vandy runs the ball, gets on the edges and those type of things. I think they're just going to be able to do enough. I think Vandy's defense will do enough to keep Texas in the low 20s. And I think Vandy's offense, much like last week against Missouri, will do just enough to pull this game out. I think that game against Missouri last week was a trap game for Vandy. It was at home, coming off an emotional win against LSU in a game that they felt like they needed to win, and they did. And in between this Texas game, Vandy almost beat Texas last year in Nashville. I think it was a 3-point game. I think this Vandy team is better than last year, and I think they're a confident group. And again, it's more than just Pavia. They're led by Pavia, but their defense is good. Their offensive line is very, very good. So I think Vandy's going to win this game. Also got a good kicker. Give me Vandy 27, Texas 21, and start talking about Vandy in the playoffs.
Who's that take us to?
Yeah, that brings us to Georgia and Florida. Sweets, get us started on this one.
The world's largest cocktail party. Kirby Smart has won 4 in a row against the Florida Gators. Georgia's coming off a bye. Gunnar Stockton's starting to look a little better at quarterback. He's starting to get a little more comfortable. He's playing well. He's not turning the ball over as much, which is a big thing. I think that, let's see here, Georgia scoring just under 34 a game. Florida scoring 22 a game. Florida's just been a train wreck all year. DJ Lagway, he's been, I don't know how bad the injuries were or whatever was going on there. They fired their coach midseason. It's just been one thing after another for the Gators this year. And Georgia's still right in the thick of everything. They got one loss. They're going to be a playoff team if they go ahead and run the table. Even if they lose a game, they're going to end up in the playoffs. Chauncey Bones. Georgia's got a rushing attack with Chauncey Bones and Nate Frazier. Gunnar Stockton's passed for just under 16 yards, 10 TDs and 1 pick. Give me the dogs here big. I like Georgia 38, Florida 10, because Kirby will score as many as he can against the Gators. What are your thoughts on this one, D-Mac?
Yeah, so I'm with you. I like Georgia a lot in this game. Gunnar Stockton's playing efficient football, only 1 interception on the year. A few things that Georgia is really good at is they're not committing penalties. They're 22nd in the country at 43 penalty yards a game, and they rank 9th in the country with time of possession at 33 minutes. This game is the first game of the Billy Gonzalez era as interim coach for Florida. So I think they come out and show some fight. I like things that their defense does, but I think Georgia's able to, make adjustments in the second half. I'm going to go 27-17 in this one. Georgia wins. Who do you have, Kevin?
Yeah. So again, we talk about that first game for an interim coach is usually always a big lift for the team with that interim coach. So will Florida get that jump? And again, they have a good defense. The defense is physical, and they have players on their offense that can move the ball with Lagway and the receiver group and Jaden Ball. So will they put it together and both sides of the ball play well for them? They've really not had that game where they've done such. Texas, I guess you could give it that. So can they do it against Georgia? Kirby's been very dominant against Florida, much like he has against Tennessee. That's the one thing you can say. Kirby has dominated the traditional Georgia rivals when you throw Auburn, Tennessee, and Florida into that. Now he doesn't fare well against Bama when they slide over on the schedule. But they're three rivals. He dominates them. I like what Gunnar Stockton's doing. I think he's playing much better than anybody anticipated at the beginning of the season. He's becoming a complete quarterback. He always has shown toughness. I think that toughness will continue in this game, and I'd see them winning the game 34-21, and with Stockton leading them in the second half to pull away in this game.
Yeah, so that brings us to the South Carolina Ole Miss game. This is a game that's being played in Oxford, opened up as a 14.5-point line in favor of Ole Miss. That is now down to 12.5. Credit to South Carolina. They played Alabama so tough last week. Their defense really stepped up a lot throughout that game. Their offense looked good. Lenore Sellers probably played his best game of the season. And, Alabama scored late to win that one. When you talk Ole Miss football, averaging 484 yards a game, 305 in the past game, and scoring 37 points a game, they're going to be tough to contain. Ole Miss, both of these teams, well, South Carolina is much better in the turnover margin. They're +4. Ole Miss is -3. So that's a 7-point swing there, 7 turnover swing between the two. But I just think Trinidad Chambliss, Winadad, as he's being called now, because that's all he does is win. 1,800 yards, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. Kewan Lacey running the ball really well, nearly 700 yards and 12 touchdowns. I just think this Ole Miss team is going to be too much for South Carolina, a team that left everything that they had on the field last week. So give me Ole Miss to win this one. I'm going to go 41-24. Ole Miss gets a win here. Who do you like in this one, Kevin?
Yeah, so like you say, credit to South Carolina last week. They really should have won that game. They gave up a pick 6 to Bama and that turnover late. So really 14 points off turnovers in that game. So give them that credit. That being said, this Ole Miss team is different. I really think Ole Miss will control this game, win it. Their offense will continue to play well. South Carolina struggles getting out of the 20s, and at home, in this game, look, Ole Miss put up over 30 points against Oklahoma and that really good defense, so they're going to do that at home in this game. Give me Ole Miss 37, South Carolina 17. I think Ole Miss rolls in this game, and in honor of Hoko, I'm going to pick a dominant win for the Ole Miss Rebels. Sweets, what's your thoughts?
I'll start off Ole Miss 38, South Carolina 21. I think the Lane train keeps it on the tracks. They're rolling. Chambliss is playing great. The defense is stepping up when they need to. And these guys are really focused. Ole Miss is going to make the playoffs this year, I think. And I give a lot of credit to Trinidad Chambliss. He's a lot like Diego Pavia. The kid he has moxie and he's a winner. He gets it done, and he finds ways to do it. He'll beat you with his feet. He'll beat you through the air. He'll beat you by extending plays. He does it all. Just very impressive to see. So go ahead and mark me down for Ole Miss big here. Where are we going next, D-Mac?
Yeah, that's going to bring us to Mississippi State and Arkansas. Get us started on this one, Kevin.
This is a game, like last week, Arkansas is one of these teams. Petrino gets them playing better, but sometimes teams just don't know how to win. And they led last week by double digits at halftime and had turnovers in that second half and let that game get away from them. And Mississippi State, they're kind of the same sense in that they've struggled winning close games. So let's break this one down a little bit. So where I like Mississippi State is their running game against Arkansas's rush defense. Arkansas's rush defense is like 123rd in the nation against the run. And again, Mississippi State averages over 410 yards total offense, 163 yards rushing the ball. I think this is a game that they could end up with over 200 yards rushing, kind of what Arkansas gives up. Both teams are going to score points. Both offenses are good. Arkansas, has one of the better offenses in the country with Petrino. And but again, one of the things that we've talked about a lot is that turnover margin. Who is last in the SEC in turnover margin? It is Arkansas. So and who is one of the better teams in turnover margin? And that is Mississippi State. Arkansas is -8. Mississippi State is a +5. I think that's going to be the difference in the game. I think it's going to be another close, hard-fought game. I think this is the game that Mississippi State pulls out and they win a conference game here for the first time in a couple of years. And then Arkansas is scratching their head and, saying, how do we win a game? Because I think they'll be competitive again. I think they'll look good at times. But I just don't know if they know how to win a game, especially a close game. Sweet, what's your thoughts?
I agree with you. I think turnovers will bite Arkansas once again. They're 125th in the country. It's just awful. You can't win games that way. They're scoring more, but turnovers will end up being their undoing. I like moves to get their first SEC victory. Give it to me 34-31 Mississippi State. What are your thoughts, D-Mac?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I used a philosophy late in baseball season last year with Missouri, who was bottom of the conference in the SEC. And going into that Texas A&M weekend, I really started to hammer down on them. I took them Thursday, Friday, Saturday in that series, the only 3 games they won. And I had started betting them a couple weeks prior to that. I was like, at some point, they're going to win. And I think the same thing with Mississippi State. They've played a couple really good games here lately. And they're 3 possessions from having 3 SEC wins right now. So give me Mississippi State to win one. I'm going to go 35-27. Mississippi State gets a much deserved and much needed win for them. So that brings.
I don't think I threw a score in there. Give me 37-31 Mississippi State. Go ahead.
That brings us to the Oklahoma-Tennessee game. Sweets, I know you've got a deep-rooted connection to the Volunteers, so why don't you get us started on this one?
25 years of marriage, boy, I'll tell you what, I've seen more great pumpkin outfits than Carter's has liver pills. This is the Bobby Hill Bowl here with Josh Heupel and Brent Venables. Both used to be Oklahoma assistants back in the day, facing off against each other. And I'll call Oklahoma see another former assistant in Seth Luttrell. Oklahoma's really struggled since Mateer got hurt earlier in the year. He just hasn't looked like he did before he broke his hand. But Mateer needs to, if Oklahoma's going to have a chance to win this game, he's going to have to buckle down good. But at the end of the day, he doesn't. I think Tennessee wins this game by 10 to 14 points. Give me Tennessee 35, Oklahoma 24. I like Tennessee a lot here. They're both 6-2, and so they're both still got a chance in the playoff hunt. Tennessee's averaging 45.6 points a game, and Oklahoma's averaging 28.4. Tennessee is third in the country with 510 yards a game, and they're also their scoring defense is 112, which kills them. But what I like here about Tennessee is that their offensive line, they're physical, they run the ball hard. I think that Heupel gets a little bit of a bad rap for being a passing guy, but Tennessee has had some tough football teams. We had this discussion offline, and Tennessee plays good physical football. Like I said, I like Tennessee 35-24 here, and I think that Tennessee keeps their playoff hopes alive, and they may go into that Vandy game with a playoff hope or with a playoff berth on the line there. So I think the Vols roll here. What are your thoughts on that one, D-Mac?
Yeah, I love this Oklahoma defense. I think they're so talented, but one thing they don't do a good job of is forcing turnovers. As a team, Oklahoma is -6 in the turnover department. That puts them 117th. Tennessee, similar to Mississippi State's really good here at +5, puts them 22nd in the nation. Yeah, I got to roll with this Tennessee gimmick offense to put up some points and put up a ton of yards against Oklahoma still. Give me Tennessee 38. Give me Oklahoma 24. Tennessee gets a big win at home. Who do you like in this one, Kevin?
So let's talk about that Oklahoma defense. And while I think they're good, I think their stats also lean into the fact that look at their schedule and the offenses they've played. Not a lot of dominant offenses on that schedule that they played. South Carolina, Texas has struggled on offense this year. Michigan, not necessarily a balanced offense. And when they played Michigan, second game of the season, so Underwood's in his second game. So I think that plays a lot into their statistical part of their defense. Now, obviously, their front seven is solid, but again, I still think that secondary has some opportunity. And I think when you look at Tennessee and the way that they can come at you balanced, and Aguilar's had a good year with their receivers, home game, Heupel. These are both former Oklahoma guys, and we talk about what you could call this game. I'm going to call it the Bob Stoops fired coaches game because he fired Heupel as his offensive coordinator and he fired Venables as his defensive coordinator, and they're both head coaches later in the deal. So, Heupel won this matchup last year. I think he wins it again this year, and I think that Tennessee wins this game pretty handily. Give them a 10-point win. I just don't think Oklahoma's offense can keep up with Tennessee's 34. Give me a 13-point win, 34-21 for the Volunteers. This is a tough stretch for Oklahoma. They lose this game. They play Alabama next week. If they lose that game and they're sitting with 4 losses, what's that do for them mentally? It's really going to test Venables, I think, in the next few games.
Yeah, so that brings us to our last SEC game of the week. That's going to be Kentucky traveling to Auburn, Alabama to take on the War Eagle Tigers, whatever they're called this week. Kevin, who do you like in this one?
Yeah, this is a game where, go figure on Auburn. I pick them. They lose these one-score games. Last week, I finally okay, I've had enough. One-score games, they're not going to win, and they go to Arkansas. They get down 10. They did finally change quarterbacks with Ashton Daniels coming in, and they won that game, and they played really well in the second half. And I think that's where this game is at. Ashton Daniels is probably going to start this game. I expect him to play. I expect him to play solid enough on offense, not turn the ball and move it. Auburn's defense is 28th in the country. Kentucky's really not good on either side of the ball. Kentucky's highlight is Cutter Boley is starting to play well, and I think they can build on him as they get into next year at quarterback. But I like Auburn in this game for them, and I don't think it'll be a one-score game because if it is, we know Hugh Freeze loses that. So give me Auburn by 10, 30-20 in this game. What you think, Sweet?
I laughed. I was thinking 31-21. As DMAC loves to point out, freezing one-score games is
Yeah,
easy money. So
that's right.
I think they win by 10 here. I think that Auburn's just a better team. They got more Jimmys and Joes. Jarquez Hunter has 717 rushing yards on the season. So he's ran the ball well, and that offensive line has been dinged up a little bit. But I think they're getting a few guys back this week. They're going to go ahead and handle Kentucky this week. I just think that Stoops is on his way out. Whether they're going to pay the buyout or not, I don't know. We'll see what happens there. What are your thoughts on this game, D-Mac?
Yeah, Kentucky looked really good last week against Tennessee. Cutter Boley had a heck of a game in that one. I think the Auburn boosters, Auburn fans, possibly even some Auburn players are tired of the Hugh Freeze era. Um, I think after this game, Hugh Freeze is going to have plenty of time to golf as much as he wants. Give me Kentucky going in to the Plains and pulling off a 27-24 win. And this is Hugh Freeze's last game as a head coach for the Auburn Tigers.
A loss, and it definitely will be. There's no question about that.
Yeah. So we've got another question I want to answer before we move on to our fantasy draft here in a second. So who has been the biggest letdown of the season team-wise? Sweets, I'm going to let you get things started here.
I think it's LSU. We started off with a win against Clemson. It was a big top 10 matchup. All the hype, pomp, circumstance, and then come to find out both of those teams aren't very good. Kelly had wrote a lot of checks that didn't end up cashing. Said he was taking receipts and stuff, and now here we are, 5-3, lost 3 out of 4, and he's out of a job. So mark me down for LSU being the biggest disappointment of the year. What are your thoughts, Kev?
So you're saying Dabo was right? LSU was a D and Clemson was an F in that game. So pretty much,
he was correct.
So I guess where I would go with that, if I had to go biggest disappointment, only because LSU won that game, I would go Clemson. I would say though, you could throw LSU and Clemson both in there. And then let me add, like I did in the comments here, let me add Texas in a couple of weeks. I'm going to go ahead and predict Texas when they have 4 losses, and they might get to 5 if they lose that Aggie game, because I see them losing this weekend. I see them losing on the road to Georgia, and I think they could lose to Aggie. I think a 7-5 Texas team would be right, as they were preseason number 1. You could throw them in there with that group of 3. What's your thoughts, D-Mac?
Yeah, so the 3 that you guys mentioned would be at the top of my list, but I'm going to take the Florida Gators here. This was the best team that Billy Napier had in his era at Florida. A team that I thought pretty highly of going into the year that really just fell completely flat. So they would be, to add to the teams that you guys mentioned, that would be my biggest letdown of the year. So before we go to the fantasy draft, we have one non-SEC game that I completely looked over, and that's USC at Nebraska. You want to get us going on that one, Kevin?
Yeah, so to me, this is, again, one of the best games of the weekend. Both teams have good quarterbacks with Jordan Mavea and Dylan Raiola. And USC is number 1 in total offense. Lincoln Riley can coach offense for sure. Where I think the difference in this game is simply one thing. So Nebraska, if you look at their total defense, they're 13th in the country. But if you go deeper and look at their rushing defense, they're 93rd in the country. Anytime Nebraska has played a physical team, they've struggled. Michigan put 30 on them and beat them. Minnesota out physicaled them and put 24 on them. USC is 23rd in rushing. I mentioned their first overall, led by Wayman Jordan. And again, they do it with more than one running back. I think USC ran the ball against Michigan, who is a physical team, for over 200 yards. So I think at the end of this game, it's going to come down to the fact UCLA will be able to run the ball and establish the run, and I see them beating Nebraska. Again, I think probably by 10. I think they're favored. USC's favored by 6.5. Now the game is at Nebraska, but I see USC winning this game 34-23. Let me go 11 points in this game. What's your thoughts, Sweets, on Dylan Raiola and the Fighting Cornhuskers against the Trojans of USC?
Well, I just drove through Lincoln and I saw the signs and I put some ethanol in the tank. So give me the Cornhuskers this week. I think Dylan Raiola steps up. Dylan Raiola is going to go for 300 plus this week. They're going to win the game 27-21. And DMAC's going to come on here next week and apologize to the kid for saying he cannot step up in the big moment. What are your thoughts, buddy?
Yeah, no, I'm going the other way. Give me USC, and I'm gonna call Raiola out again. He just does not step up in big games. He cannot
doesn't.
lead his team to a win. So
Looks
give
good
me
throwing it.
USC. Yeah, he is good throwing, but I think the run game of USC, like you mentioned, Kevin, is just going to be too much. I'm going to go 35-24. USC wins this one. So that now brings us to our fantasy draft here, where we're going to do 5 rounds. The first 4 are candidates to win a national championship, and then round 5 will be our group of 5 team. You can always take a group of 5 team in the first 4 rounds if you want, but we'll go snake draft starting with Kevin, then you Sweets, then me. So Kevin, round 1, pick 1. Who do you have?
Well, I've already said they're going to go undefeated, so I got to go with Ohio State. I think they're the clear cut if you're going to pick a national champion here. So that's mine. Who's next? Who we got next?
That would be me. I'm gonna stay in the SEC. Give me Georgia. I think that the defense is starting to come into play. I think Gunnar Stockton is coming around. The running game's getting a little better. God, I hate to say that. But yeah, go ahead and I'm gonna take the Pups in the first round here. Where are you going, DMAC?
I think I know
Yeah,
the
so
thing here.
so I got back-to-back picks. Give me Texas A&M first. And then I kind of get an easy pick, round 2, pick 1. Give me the Crimson Tide here.
After that struggle, I really like your A&M pick, and Marcel Reed is going to win. Let me go on record: Marcel Reed to win the Heisman if A&M is in that semifinal type stuff. Sweets, I think you're up next.
Oh Lordy. You know what? I will go ahead and take a step back and say that the Lane Train and Ole Miss wins the national title. Led by Trinidad Chambliss, he becomes the first player in the history of college football to lead 2 different national champions as quarterback. So go ahead and give me the hottie toddy for my second pick. Who you got, Kev?
Man, I tell you what, I take the Big Ten team to lead off, and then you guys just start sweeping through the SEC. So I guess that leads me back. I talked about this team, and I don't think they're a fluke this year. And out of the teams left, I think they're the best team left. Give me Indiana and that power rushing game that they have, and Mendoza at quarterback. I think Indiana would be the next best pick here. And then it would be my pick again for the third pick. And I'm going to go with the team that I've mentioned sometimes this year as one of my favorite teams to watch, and a team that I think if you get them in the playoffs, you don't want to play them because of the way they play offense. They're balanced, and they got a quarterback that is gutty and can play whatever style of game he needs to play to win, led by a coach that just oozes toughness, and they're good on both sides of the ball. Anybody want to guess where I'm going here?
Ramblin' Wreck.
Ramblin' Wreck from Georgia Tech.
Ramblin' Wreck.
Jimmy Haynes King and Brent Key, Buster Faulkner with that offense. Give me the Ramblin' Wreck. All right, Sweets, you're up.
I like it. I'm going to go to the most heavily backed NIL team on earth. Give me the Quacking Ducks of Oregon. Phil Knight gets his dream, and then he cuts the program off and never donates another nickel. How about that for a prediction? Where you going next, D-Mac? You got two.
Yeah, so you went Oregon there. I am going to go Texas Tech here. And then for my last pick, give me Marcus Freeman and the Fighting Irish here to round out my
like that one.
round 4.
That's a good pick. That swings it back to me, huh? I'm surprised this team hasn't been taken yet with their tough defense. I don't think that they have the coach to do it, but this is just a flyer, a late pick. Give me the Miami Hurricanes. That defense is tough, and I'll tell you what, they can, they have the ability to shut down anybody on any given night. And if Carson Beck can get it rolling at the right time, there's no reason why that team can't win a national championship. Defensively, they got it going. Where are you going next, Kev?
Yeah, so we're down here. These teams are, towards the end. Will they make the playoffs? Won't they make the playoffs? I said earlier that this team's going to win this week on the road and put them in the playoffs. I took Georgia Tech and Haynes King. This next team is very similar to that in that they're not dominant if you just look at pure stats offensively, but they are really good in time of possessions, really good in third downs, and they do score points, balanced, good on defense, really good on special teams. We've talked about them being very well coached across the board this year. And again, on that turnover piece, they're good. So give me Vanderbilt as my fourth team, as I think they'll be in the playoffs. So that gives me, I guess that's, my only SEC team. Wow. And so I got 2 Big Tens. I would have not thought that leading into this. But that was there. And I like them. Give me Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia Tech, and Vanderbilt.
Nice. And then that
All right,
for round 5,
I
you're up again, Kevin.
Oh, we're actually going 5 rounds in this.
Yeah, so this will be
All
our
right.
group of 5
this
teams.
Kev.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Kev. This is Kev.
5.
This is your group of 5. If you pick who I have, Kev, I'll shoot you.
I don't think I will pick who you got because we were talking about these last night. And, I still, man, I think South Florida's the best, but with 2 losses, I think that's going to knock them out. So I'm not going to go there. So I'm gonna let me go here because in the team I'm gonna pick may get knocked out this week. I was the only one that picked them earlier, but I like their schedule. I don't know if they're going to win that conference championship game though, because their toughest game left would be in that conference championship game. So I'm not gonna. I was gonna go North Texas. I'm not gonna go them. Give me Memphis. Sweet to you.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who I could go with there. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm not gonna lie. I'm not even sure if they're how many losses they have. But give me Summerall and Tulane here.
That's a good one.
They're as good as anybody in the group of 5. He's a heck of a coach, and they get it rolling and pull off some upsets. Where are you going, D-Mac?
So I'm heading out west. Give me UNLV here. I think they find a way to win that conference. The American gets a little banged up, and they're able to sneak in here. So that wraps up the draft portion. So any final thoughts as we wrap up the show tonight? Sweets.
My thoughts are this. I'm going to go back to LSU football, letting Brian Kelly go. I think that it was time for a change. I think that the powers that be are they're going to come together, and I think at the end of the day they're going to hire a good, solid coach that's going to lead us into the future. While I'd prefer somebody younger and energetic, I just want to win and see quality football. So my thoughts of the week are. LSU will right the ship next year, get NIL rolling, and we're going to be all right. We're going to be all right. What are your thoughts, Kev?
Yeah, so look, every week we go into the season, and as we get deeper into the season, it's win in advance and go to the get your opportunity to get in the playoffs. And no team exhibited that better last week than Alabama in a game that they struggled and they probably should have lost. And so I referenced that. I think this week you've got a couple of games that are all about winning and advancing. First one is Vanderbilt, Texas. That's must-watch TV. Whoever wins that game still got a shot in the playoffs. I guess if Vandy loses, they're only at 2 losses. They can still win out and have a shot. But I like Vandy, but that's a game that everybody should watch. And then same thing with Tennessee and Oklahoma. When it comes to win and keep your playoff hopes alive, it's very important for Tennessee. I think Tennessee has a chance to make the playoffs, but they've got to win to set up that last game of the season between them and Vanderbilt. And I think for Tennessee, they need Vandy to go into that game with 1 loss. So I really like those games this weekend, and I think that's what it's about. Is there'll be another game out of nowhere like that Bama game this week. It's about winning and advancing. D-Mac, what about you?
Yeah, I'm ready to hear some cowbell ring on the road this week at Arkansas. So I'm going to be tuned into that game very closely. Watch the Bulldogs get their first win of the season in conference play. So it's what I'm looking forward to most this weekend in college football, and the fact that LSU gets a bye week. I'm ecstatic about that.
We're
So
not going to
guys,
lose.
no, can't lose to the bye. So that's one big positive. So thanks for everybody who. Oh, Kevin.
LSU fans have never been so unified since 2019 over what happened this week. It's crazy how the fan base was totally all in and ready for the change. I think that's very telling.
Yeah, it was. I think everybody in Louisiana was happy. I think you may have made some people in Gainesville not so happy with the move right now. Yeah, definitely. It was time for a fresh start for LSU, definitely, and Brian Kelly can go do his next thing somewhere else. So guys, thanks for listening tonight. Remember to like, follow, subscribe to our channel, follow us on social media, and we will see you guys Thursday night. We'll be recording our high school podcast, final thoughts, and picks of the week. So we'll see you guys soon.